Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. Today, guys, we have one of the repeat guests I have been very most excited for a very long time. It's been years, literally years, since she's been on the podcast previously. And in fact, the last time she was on the podcast, we did not even have a video set up, which now we are so fortunate to have. And then last year after the Parameet, it didn't work out for us to be able to record, and we almost didn't have the opportunity this year. But as our message always been, we create opportunity in the face of challenge. So even though I was hospitalized this weekend, even though the schedule did not play out remotely how we expected, we are in here Monday morning recording in the studio a podcast with our very own and one of my just honored and cherished friends, Arlyn Smith. Thanks for being here, Arlyn.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So it's been what, 2.5 years now since I think you were last on the show? Yeah. And if you guys didn't catch Arlyn's story originally, I'm going to put the link in the show notes so you can go back and hear her original story of overcoming addiction, ataxia, recovering from a stroke, battling mental health and suicide. She is truly the definition of what it means to become impossible, to battle it through everything she has in life, and then to come out the other side as one of the strongest female adaptive lifters in the entire world. And that's what she was here this weekend for, was for the USPC second annual ParaNationals. So talk to me about coming up into, well, first take me back and talk to me about what led you to wanting to start competing in para-athletics. And then let's dive into specifically the lead up to this meet.
Well, as you know, I was in love with athletics when I was young, starting at age 2. I mean, every Olympics, like every athlete, my my first biography was on an Olympian in 6th grade, and you know, when I was in middle school, that's when just everything, snowballed, everything, the anorexia, the addiction, everything. And it wasn't until I was 33 years old that I got really serious about recovery from my eating, from my substance, from everything. And at that point, I had the stroke at age 23 because of a suicide attempt. Yeah, and I really, I needed to be an athlete. This is me. This is what I've always wanted as a child, and I always thought I was going to be a track and field Olympian.
Yeah, because you had those aspirations from way back as a child. But then it's you go through all of these things, like you were in active addiction for years, and then you battle the stroke and the recovery from that, and you literally have to watch your body deteriorate in front of your eyes, which can be incredibly challenging and compromising to our personal identity. I know that's something a lot of athletes struggle with. So I would be really interested in what is that moment like in going from this place of being completely broken and beaten down. And I know it's not a singular moment, it's a process over time likely, but going from being broken and beaten down, and then for the first time fostering this belief in yourself that maybe I am capable of something in this area. What was that specific part of the journey like?
That, it wasn't, and I would like to say it was instant, but it was more like I always had this fire in my heart, and it just didn't go out. And even when I do things that might seem minute, like sweeping my floor, I was going to do it the best I could. And, practicing your curling Kansas soup and we wheelchair, which that's how I started. Yeah, I would tell myself I have to give my all to this. Like, there was no, I'd always given myself kind of an, well, if this doesn't work, I can give up. And I was like, I can't give myself that leeway. And I just had to bring out that fire in my heart that was still there and then it never gone out in everything I did in life.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one of the hardest pieces for people to foster and develop in themselves, and not just people who are adaptive athletes or face disabilities or whatever it may be. I talk to so many people in day-to-day life where it's like, I'll go out and run a half marathon or whatever, and they'll say, oh my gosh, that's so amazing, I would love to do that, but there's no way I could ever do that. And it just, every time I've become so sensitive to hearing stuff like that now, because it's so shocking, because all I can think is, why would you limit yourself in that way? Why would you choose to tell yourself that story? And in fact, I know that you could go out and run a half marathon, because me back then I was a 300-pound powerlifter with one leg. I was like, I just did that. So I guarantee you, as an average healthy 30-year-old or whatever, I guarantee you could go run a half marathon if you wanted to. And I don't even think it's that they're making excuses saying like, man, I'd love to do that, but I just can't do it, or I don't have the time. I think most of the time people generally believe that story they're telling themselves. And that's why we become so focused on this narrative piece, this idea of being able to reclaim your narrative, the story you tell yourself about yourself in the situation you're in. That's actually heavily built into the app now. There's a big feature for being able to do that on a daily basis. And so it's like, I just wonder, like, how do people get to that place? How do they get to a place where they have lost so much personal confidence and faith in their own abilities that they believe a 300-pound one-legged powerlifter could go out and run a half marathon, but they don't believe that for themselves? And that's the piece I've been really keenly, uniquely interested in, because I see that potential in them. I know you could see that potential in them. I know Austin sees that potential in them. How do we help them see that potential within themselves?
I really, and having gone through this, letting the world,
You're good.
letting others tell me what my story is. And I think a lot of people, I hand that over to everyone else. What is my narrative that you tell me? And there's no sense of, like, I had to get to the point in my life where it's like, no, this is my story. I'm going to write it for myself. And I wouldn't it easy for other people to tell me what to do. So I didn't have any responsibility for myself. And, I have the ability to write my own story.
Yeah.
Like, I determine it.
Yeah. That's why we come back to that piece of having the unruly faith in your own potential. Because that's really the only antidote, I think, to these self-limiting beliefs. You've got to have unruly faith in your own potential. And we specifically say it that way because it needs to be a little unruly. It needs to be a little out there. It needs to be a little beyond what you or most people think you're capable of. Because when you push to that place, you learn and grow and develop and build so much more immensely than you ever would by taking on a challenge that you feel 100% confident that you could achieve. Like if I went out and said, oh, I'm going to work to go run a mile. Well, for some people, that is an impossible goal. There was a point in my life where that was an impossible goal. But it gets to the point where it's like, okay, that's a surefire thing now. I know that if I went out right now, no matter the conditions, I could go run a mile. And so there's just not as much, not to take any achievement away from that, but what you gain from that as an individual, especially in the emotional, spiritual, and mental domains, is so much less than if you go out and attempt to run something that you are not quite certain if you can do it or not. And so I think that's where that line really comes into place of being able to pick these impossible goals that push you to a place where you're not sure if you can quite achieve it or not, but at the same time, it's still within grasp of, your actual, physical capabilities, whatever it may be. And it's a fine line to ride, but I think when that fear piece comes up, when that little bit of unruliness comes up, that's a really good tell of, hey, I'm pushing to a place that's going to challenge me to my highest capacity and force me to bring forth a higher version of myself.
And what again in the process of everything, years of the process, for always everything, because the level of not egotism at all, but confidence and belief and faith in myself I have at this point, I feel like I really believe I can get through anything. And I do. There are things that even 10 years ago I told myself, this is the one thing there's no way I'll ever be able to get through. And I did. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with me. I love me. And this sounds Pollyanna, but I just really, the strength I feel is incredible, especially inside.
Yeah, and that's the gift. And we've been talking about this a lot online, because all of these things, we've said since day one, our main mission message piece is the be impossible, not the do the impossible. Mm-hmm. Because the do the impossible it's one of the best parts. Don't get me wrong. The day I squatted that 500 pounds is always going to be one of the most incredible, exciting days of my life. Mm-hmm. But throughout the journey, the real gift, what you actually receive, is the individual you build. And I put a reel up about this the other day, because that 500-pound squat means, even though it's one of the most exciting things I've ever experienced, one of the greatest achievements of my life, it means nothing for me today in this moment. In the sense that because I did that 500-pound squat, it's not actually doing anything for me right now. But what is working for me right now is the individual I built throughout the process of being able to earn that 500-pound squat. Because right now, I probably couldn't squat 300 pounds right at the moment, And so it's that phase of strength, that phase of life is already gone. And that's okay, because what I now carry with me is the individual who was disciplined, who was strong, who was capable to fight through the immense fear and the immense challenge, and willingly put himself in positions that completely and utterly terrified him on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And to work through that and build a system and a process and become at peace with that. So that now, when I randomly go into the hospital on a Friday night and have to face severe challenge there, I can handle it at a higher level because of the individual I built during that 500-pound squat process. And so while that goal, that outcome, that 500-pound squat is a beautiful thing that will always be a part of me, it's not the gift. The gift is the individual. And we have to be focused on this path and this process of building an individual who builds those outcomes. But even then, it's not the outcomes that are going to let you win at life. It's the individual you build along the way. And I think you're just such a perfect testament to that. And so many of our athletes in that para meet were a perfect testament to that, because that's how you show up to the platform every single time. So what was it like going through meet day this year?
Now, every single meet, I have the best experiences. I was talking to someone, it's almost like it's a reunion where you see your friends, you make new friends. Like, it's fun to see how life is going for everyone, not just in the gym. And, you see how strong everyone is, not just physically inside. And there's so much energy. There's just so much. People are cheering for each other, and spotters and loaders, and people are helping, and it's awesome.
Yeah. The energy, the community piece, and actually that was a big post I put up yesterday. I was talking about that piece of community, and I think it exists. Obviously, it exists at some level in all areas of sport and athletics. Because anytime a group of humans do hard things together, it's going to build an incredibly profound sense of community. But I think I've felt it even more strongly in the powerlifting community, because the powerlifting strongman, the strength community, a lot of times we come from these very, very dark backgrounds, places of addiction, places of mental health, places of severe loss, physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever it may be. And so I think I've always related to that community very heavily, like yourself, because we all understand what we're fighting, and we all understand that we're not on the platform necessarily. Like, there is this level of competition, but we're really on the platform to fight ourselves in the most case, and not in a way that we're trying to tear ourselves down, but that we're fighting to build who we can become and not revert to who we've been. And I think that's a very powerful practice and a very powerful process. And from the moment, so I was supposed to compete this weekend. I got put in the hospital Friday night, and then was in the hospital all day Saturday and busted out Sunday. And so I didn't even get a chance to come out and watch the meet. But from the moment I saw the very first video, which was your first squat, your opening squat, which you absolutely smoked, all of those emotions came rushing back to me of just what that experience is like. And even though I was in a different state, 50 miles away, I could feel every moment of that meet just because of that bond of community that exists there. And particularly within the space of the para athletes. I think specifically what we battle through to show up on that platform, and specifically the frame of reference in which we do show up on that platform, is something that's, to me, very uniquely appealing. Because I think so many people, it's so easy as an athlete to get so focused on the world records and the placings and the PRs and all that stuff. And you should focus on that. It's good to have a healthy focus on those goals. But when those become the driving reason of why you show up to the platform, I think that is just not as powerful of a place to enter into, as opposed to when you show up to that platform, first to discover that potential within yourself, and especially in the case of para athletes, you're overcoming amputations, ataxias, cerebral palsy, paralyzations. There's all sorts of challenges that people are overcoming just to get on the platform, just to even get to the meet. And then you go and do something that's absolutely insane, totally impossible for what you should be able to do compared to like what your disability is. And you start to realize, hey, if I can come and do this in the face of this disability, where most people think I can't even walk across my house, then what else am I capable of, And then you transmit that into others. You transmit that belief into others, and that builds a level of community the likes of which I've never seen before. And when you and Chandler came to visit me in the hospital that night, it really sealed that for me. It showed me that community at a level I'd never seen before. And the fact that we still talk regularly all the time, but we hadn't seen each other face to face in over a year. And then Chandler, I hadn't seen or really talked to him hardly at all in a year, but we were just able to chat and hang out and talk like we were old friends. And that was just such a beautiful experience, and I needed that so badly that night.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and what you were just saying, every time, you know, I do something, or when someone says, "Oh, I can't do this. This is too hard." You know, they forget, and I forget. You have already done something incredibly hard, like, yeah, but so getting through early sobriety, finding the strength, and that's dramatic, but finding the will and strength to live was, it sounds ridiculous to some people, but that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Ever. In everything else, I can think, oh, this is so hard, I can't do this. And I'm like, you have gone through the hardest battle any human being could ever go through, and you made it.
Yeah.
So, you know, why can't you do this?
Yeah, it's using those past achievements as proof for future potential. And I think that, you know, I think a lot of people, going back to what we were talking about, whether there's a lot of people who have these stories that they've fully convinced themselves of that they're not capable of these things, which we can see in them. I wonder if maybe the challenge is that they just don't have a lot of that proof, you know, in their lives. Like maybe they're in a position where they feel like they haven't overcome something that hard. I would argue that I think we all have overcome challenge in our lives. Yeah, it may not be cancer or an amputation or a stroke or addiction. You know, maybe it's not that for you. But if you're a young person and you're sitting at home and you're thinking like, man, I've just never had to fight through anything like this, I would really ask you to question that. Because I bet there's some things that you have overcome that actually were really hard for you. And the thing we talk about is that all pain, all challenge is all relative. Like we all only understand the worst. We've all only been through the worst thing we've ever been through, you know? And in that way you can relate. Like Paul and I had this conversation on his podcast. He can talk about his double quad tear in the same context I can talk about my cancer and amputation. Because even though, you know, like societally we would say like, oh, one might be harder than the other, it's irrelevant. Like that's the hardest thing he's ever been through. That's the hardest thing I've ever been through. And so the experience is the same because it's just the hardest thing you've ever been through. And what we learned out of those experiences is also the exact same. Because whenever you push yourself, or not push yourself, but you find yourself in facing a new challenge, a new impossible, you can either give into it, let it crumble and destroy you, or you can choose to face it, work through it, overcome it, build an individual who is capable of beating it, and then come out the other side stronger. And so I think everybody has gone through that process, at least in some small way throughout the entirety of their life. But even if you haven't, even if you were sitting there and you think, like, I've just never really overcome anything hard, then go find something hard to overcome. Hardship can be either chosen or it can be unchosen. And you will experience unchosen hardship in your life. The antidote to unchosen hardship is chosen hardship on a regular, consistent basis. So go out and get in a gym. Start doing some heavy squats. I guarantee you will work through this process under a heavy squat bar.
Yeah.
Or, you know, go out and run. Go out and commit yourself to an intense study or theological practice. It doesn't, you know, it can be anything. There's an infinite number of ways to do hard things. But as you start working through that process, you start to uncover more and more and more about your own potential. And I know the thing that is stopping you is fear. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, Arlyn, because we talk about fear a lot on the podcast. It's one of my favorite topics, honestly. And I know that for me, climbing under a squat bar is completely terrifying. And I know that for you, it has to be even immensely more so because you could be under hundreds of pounds of weight, almost double your body weight. And the squat position is very delicate. Like sometimes even just a minor shift can send you falling on your face, falling on your side, collapsing under the bar. And yeah, exactly. And the thing for you is that you don't necessarily have total voluntary control over what's going to happen, but you do have total voluntary control of how you react under that bar. So how do you specifically, not even just focusing on the mechanics of the squat, but how do you put yourself in a place of peace and acceptance to be able to take on the fear that comes from squatting? And what is it that gets you through that movement? Not just gets you through it, but it allows you to perform at a very high level within it.
Well, it's very similar, very much the same thing as everything in life. Like, if the antidote to everything is doing what scares me the most. I'm not going to grow if I stay in my comfort zone. I'm just not. And, I need to do something that's incredibly challenging for me and scares me because that's what's going to make me grow the most. Sometimes these things are petrifying. They really are. But I know that they're the best thing for me, that if it scares me that much, then it's good.
Mm-hmm. And I really, really love what you said there. That's my philosophy exactly. Change the narrative on fear. I hate this concept that so many people talk about today. These like fake influencers out there who are like just overcome fear, make fear non-existent, make fear never enter your life. And I'm like, that is such bullcrap. Like if you live your life in pursuit of escaping fear, you are going to just live an entire lie your entire existence. Now, we also shouldn't live a life of allowing fear to completely control and consume us. But the way I've really started to look at it is I view all human emotion as essentially just that, human emotion. And there is no good, there is no bad. Now, certainly feeling happy is more fun than feeling sad. But I've started to really build this belief and this narrative in my mind of, like anytime I feel emotion, being able to recognize like, this is not good or bad. This is just humanity. This is my humanity coming forth. And there are times where I'm going to feel happy. There are times where I'm going to feel sad. There are times where I'm going to feel distraught. There are times where I'm going to feel more scared than I've ever been in my life. But I don't choose to give that a good or a bad label because then it dictates the action around it. I just choose to accept that as I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to feel this. I'm going to allow myself this moment, this period of humanity. And the one practice I have within that is I'm going to build a sense of peace within it. Not that I make the fear go away. Not that I make the sadness go away. I'm just going to sit here and find a way to become at peace with this emotion. What's great about that is it works for any emotion. You can be peaceful when you're happy. You can be peaceful when you're sad. You can be peaceful when you're angry or frustrated or distraught. And the really unique thing about that is it allows you to fully adapt and experience and understand and learn and grow from that emotion. And so when I was getting under the squat bar and felt, especially that 500 pounds, I will never forget that moment in my life. It is like imprinted on my brain. The fear that I felt, yet the peace I was able to bring forth in understanding that this fear is just part of the process. It doesn't control me. It doesn't control the outcome. And in fact, learning to navigate this human emotion is going to bring me more power and more strength under this bar. And that's the piece that I've been coming back to more and more and more frequently. And so I think when we get in these places in life where we're afraid to pursue something, or we're scared of what could happen, or we're distraught over something that has already happened. I really think the key to that is just to recognize that as your own. Hey, this is my humanity. This is my humanity speaking to me. This is proof and verification of just how much humanity I hold within me. And there is immense power in that human spirit. And then rather than trying to figure out a way to, how do I make this go away? How do I make this change? I think we just ask the question, how do I learn from this? How do I grow from this? It's not something you need to do something about. Let's just use it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah, when we were talking about this, and I actually had someone get angry at me because I said something about, oh, we wasted all this time in my life trying to do something, and I thought it sounded good. And they said, you did not waste anything. You learn from those things. That wasn't wasted at all. You are now using those things as lessons, so it wasn't wasted.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it is hard to get out of that mindset of feeling like, oh, I wasted so, because I battle with that myself. I'm like, my gosh, if I had just come out of cancer and started getting in the gym and not wasted, all those years battling alcoholism and the darkness and the demons and everything else, how much further along could I be? I battle those same things. But you're absolutely right. Just like how I view my leg. People ask me, oh, it's amazing you squat 500 pounds. How much could you squat with 2 legs? I'm like, I would squat far less because I never would have stepped in the gym. Never would have had a reason to. And I think the same thing is true of my alcoholism and those really dark periods of life. I never would have found a way to push myself to the capacity and realize and bring forth the level of potential I have if I hadn't had to do it from the very dark, bottomless depths of where I was. And so you're absolutely right. And in fact, I think not only should that be the story we write, I think it's the only story we can write about it. Because all that stuff is in the past. If we spend any energy wasting our time thinking like, oh man, what if it weren't that way? You're just wasting everything. You're wasting your potential right now because you're never going to be able to go back and change it, even if it would have pushed you so much further. So the only option, the only story we can tell ourselves that actually makes a meaningful difference is that it was good I went through this, because it gave me this gift of the individual that it built, with whom now I have the opportunity to go forth and pursue an impossible level of potential.
That doesn't mean it was a great experience.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's fun. Would not recommend it to other people.
But it's those things are something, how what's happened with members of my family, and exactly, it's like I can lament and ruminate about, oh, what could have been different? What could I have done? What, in the past, but it wouldn't change a single thing. All the energy I could be spending on things moving forward, making life better for me, making life, being there for the people I love, doing what I need to do. All that energy would go towards us to sing about something that will never change.
Yeah. And that's where that final piece of our vision comes into play, that constant pursuit of the impossible. Because while we want to learn and grow and build and always remember our past, we need to keep our focus forward. Forward to the things we can achieve, the individuals we can build, and the cultural impact we can have on the world as a whole. And that's been a core tenet belief of ours since day one. And I think it was just so perfectly and profoundly demonstrated and reflected and built at the ParaNationals this past weekend. So, Arlyn, I really appreciate you being a part of the Para Division since day one. I appreciate your message and everything you do and everything you give us. Anything else you want to leave people with today?
Just keep going, keep moving forward. Don't give up. It sounds like a locker room, but really, just life is hard for everyone. It is, but there's a lot of strength. Just keep going. Yeah.
Just keep going in those moments when you were in the darkest depths of life. Make your worldview small. Move forward. Focus on one manageable task at a time. And as you go down that path, you will build an individual, the likes of whom you could have only dreamed of. The likes of whom will be able to not only save yourself, but save so many others in their lives. And when you get to that place where you're under the bar or whatever it may be for your life, always foster that unruly faith in your own potential. Your potential to succeed, your potential to grow, and most importantly, your potential to build an impossible version of yourself who could not or should not otherwise have existed without that challenge you face. Arlyn, I really appreciate you being here today. If people want to find you online, where can they best find you?
Facebook, Arlyn Smith, and then on Instagram, Arlyn Smith, who you know, Lou is my cat. Yeah, so Arlyn Smith, and now I'm coaching with you.
Yeah. Arlyn is now a coach on the Impossible app. So if you guys want to reach out to her, she has her NASM CPT with also so many specializations, including being able to work with a lot of adaptive athletes with even a Parkinson's certification. So definitely check out. We're going to link her landing page below. Definitely check her out. And she is a phenomenally brilliant resource in how to navigate training in your own life, but particularly build these goals for yourself that will unlock and let you realize a new level of potential. So check out that link below. And as always, guys, outside of that, we never run any ads on this show. The number one thing we ask is that if you got something out of today's episode, please copy the link and share it on social media, through an email, through a text message, with as many people as you know whom you believe it would help. Because at the end of the day, that is how we do everything we are striving for at Impossible Performance. And we do also now, at the time of this episode release, we have new apparel live. For the first time in over a year, we have a brand new apparel line designed by Riss Mullen herself. It is freaking sick. I am so stoked about it. We have our first line right now, the no limitations. Limitations do not exist. And there is a t-shirt, a hoodie, and a tank top for you guys. So you can jump on, the link will be below to pre-order that. We're very excited for this new level of apparel. We're working really hard to take it to a new level and give you guys good, comfortable, high performance material and clothing line to be able to represent this brand. So appreciate you guys and everything you do. Thank you for listening today, because at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you for listening. And as always, be impossible.